Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring AI2's Tülu 3405B.
Okay.
This massive open source AI model that's causing quite a stir.
Yeah.
And we're going to be using some insights from Jörg-Owe, who's done some really fascinating work outlining this model and its potential impact.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable what they've achieved with this.
It really is.
Just imagine an AI model that can basically go toe-to-toe with the giants in the industry like GPT-4, but it's completely open for anybody to access and even tinker with and build upon.
I know. That's what I think is so exciting about it.
Yeah.
It feels like a real turning point in a lot of ways.
It does.
So for our listeners who might be hearing about Tülu 3 for the first time, what are we dealing with here?
So Tülu 3405B was developed by the Allen Institute for AI. They call it AI2 for short.
Okay.
And it launched earlier this year. It's built on the Llama 3.0 framework.
Okay.
And that 405B that you hear, that refers to its 405 billion parameters. So think of those parameters like knobs and dials that the model uses to kind of process information.
Right.
And the more you have, the more nuanced and complex its understanding becomes.
So that's a big one.
It's a big one.
And it's built on a solid foundation, but how does it actually perform compared to?
In benchmark tests,
Yeah.
it matches or even surpasses the performance of some of the big names out there, like OpenAI's GPT-4 and DeepSeek's V3.
Wow.
And what's really impressive is that it achieves this with fewer parameters than DeepSeek's V3, which makes it incredibly efficient.
Oh, wow.
And that efficiency isn't just about bragging rights. It means lower energy consumption and the potential for it to run on less powerful devices, opening it up to a much wider range of users.
That's a big win for accessibility.
It is.
Now, I'm curious about the process that they used to create this model. What makes A2's approach unique?
So one of the things that really sets Tülu 3 apart is its rigorous 4-stage training process. It starts with careful data curation and synthesis, where they focus on core skills and work really hard to eliminate any biases in the data.
Right.
From there, they move on to supervised fine-tuning.
Okay.
And this is where they use very carefully crafted prompts and completions to kind of refine the model's understanding of language.
So they're essentially teaching it the art of conversation.
Exactly.
In a very specific way.
Yeah. And then comes direct preference optimization, or DPO. And instead of relying solely on developers to determine what good looks like, they're actually training the model based on user feedback and preferences.
Oh, wow.
So imagine if you were constantly tweaking and refining Tülu 3 based on what you find helpful and useful.
Yeah.
That's essentially what DPO does.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And what's the final stage?
The final stage is reinforcement learning from verifiable rewards, or RLVR.
Oh, okay.
And here they focus on enhancing specific skills like math and coding by using quantifiable outcomes. So think of it as giving the model like extra training in specific areas to make it even more proficient.
So they're going all out to refine and optimize this thing every step of the way.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
This meticulous attention to detail really seems to be a big part of what makes it special.
Yeah.
And different from other models.
It is.
So let's talk about some of the key features and benefits.
Okay.
What jumps out at you?
I think the most significant thing is its open source nature.
Okay.
AI2 has committed to full transparency, giving you access not only to the model itself, but also the infrastructure and even the training data.
Wow.
And this openness fosters trust within the AI community because it allows researchers to scrutinize the model's inner workings, identify any potential biases, and contribute to its ongoing development.
That's huge.
It's a stark contrast to the closed and secretive approach of a lot of companies out there.
Right.
And it really has the potential to change the game when it comes to ethical AI development.
It's refreshing to see that level of transparency.
It is.
It really sets a new standard for the field, I think.
It does.
What other features stand out to you?
Well, we already touched on its efficiency,
Yeah.
but it's worth emphasizing again.
It's okay.
The fact that it can outperform models with larger parameter counts is a testament to the team's dedication to optimization. They've also made huge strides in terms of safety, integrating safety data sets and considerations throughout that whole training process.
Yeah.
And this is really crucial when we're talking about AI models that are becoming increasingly powerful and influential.
Absolutely. And from what I've read, it's instruction following capabilities are exceptional.
They are.
It can execute instructions very precisely.
Precisely.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
So imagine being able to give it complex instructions, whether it's writing different kinds of creative content or translating languages or even coding, and have it carry them out with that level of accuracy.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. For AI to be truly useful in our daily lives, it needs to be reliable and do what we ask of it.
Exactly.
But they didn't stop at making it powerful and safe.
Right.
They also made it very accessible to developers.
Right.
So they provide these really comprehensive resources, including data toolkits, training code, and checkpoints.
So it's like they're handing you a toolbox and saying, go build something amazing.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And that focus on accessibility is going to be key.
It is.
In driving innovation within the open source AI community.
Absolutely.
So with all this power and flexibility, what are some of the ways that people might actually use Tülu 3 in the real world?
The possibilities are pretty vast.
Yeah.
Natural language processing is a given, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine using it for tasks like generating different creative text formats, summarizing complex information, translating languages, analyzing sentiment, and social media data.
Okay.
But it goes even beyond that. Tülu 3 has the potential to revolutionize scientific research. Think about using it for data analysis.
Okay.
Identifying patterns in research data, or even accelerating research in fields like medicine or climate science.
So it's like having a super-powered research assistant at your fingertips.
That's a great way to put it.
That's incredible.
And let's not forget about how businesses could use it.
Right.
You know, it could revolutionize customer service with these more intuitive chatbots.
Yeah.
Automate various tasks to increase efficiency and provide really robust back-end support for all sorts of applications.
It seems like the potential applications are truly limitless.
They are.
Spanning across research and business and even our everyday lives.
Yeah.
But before we get too carried away with all the possibilities, it's important to acknowledge that there are challenges and limitations to consider.
Right.
No technology is perfect.
You're absolutely right. There are definitely some hurdles that Tülu 3 and the open source AI community as a whole need to overcome.
Okay.
For starters, the complexity of post-training can be a challenge for some developers. You know, fine-tuning the model for specific applications requires a fair amount of technical expertise.
So even though it's open and accessible, you still need a certain level of skill to really utilize its full potential.
You do.
What are some of the other challenges?
Well, data privacy is a major concern, especially when you're using AI models in sensitive fields like healthcare or finance.
Right.
Organizations need to be incredibly careful about how they handle data, even if the AI model they're using is open source.
Of course.
And then there's the question of resource requirements.
Okay.
You know, Tülu 3 is massive.
Yeah.
And running it effectively takes significant computational power. Not everyone has access to the kind of hardware needed to fully harness its capabilities.
That makes sense. It's like having a powerful sports car.
Exactly.
You need the right infrastructure to really get the most out of it.
Yeah.
Are there any other challenges that come to mind?
I think one final challenge is the need for even clearer and more user-friendly documentation.
Okay.
AI2 has done a commendable job, but yeah.
With a model as complex as this one, there's always room for improvement.
Right.
When it comes to guiding developers through its intricacies.
It's like the classic information overload problem.
It is.
Sometimes having too much information can be just as daunting as not having enough.
Absolutely.
But despite these challenges, Tülu 3 represents a significant leap forward in the world of open source AI.
It does.
I'm curious about what's next for Tülu 3 and the future of open source AI in general.
Okay.
What does Schnepp-Pott have to say about the direction of the field?
Well, that's a great question. And one area where he sees significant potential is in preference tuning.
Okay.
We can delve into that right after a quick break.
Yeah.
One area where he sees significant potential is in preference tuning.
Okay. We talked about direct preference optimization earlier.
Right.
What's the next step for that technology?
He argues that we need to move beyond the relatively small data sets that are currently being used for preference tuning.
Like the ultra feedback dataset with its 60,000 samples. Exactly. He envisions preference datasets growing to a scale comparable to those used for supervised fine-tuning.
Wow.
Perhaps even exceeding 300,000 prompts.
That's a lot of data.
Imagine the level of refinement we could achieve with that amount of data. It would be a game changer for aligning AI models with human preferences.
That's a fascinating prospect. Speaking of refinement, you mentioned that evaluation frameworks are crucial for the open source community.
They are.
What advancements are we likely to see in that area?
AI2 is actually taking a very proactive approach here.
Okay.
They're developing a comprehensive toolkit for developers that includes benchmarks and streamlined experimentation pipelines.
So it's all about creating a more standardized and robust way to assess the performance of open source models.
Precisely, when everyone is working with the same tools and standards, it raises the bar for quality and accelerates the pace of innovation.
It also helps ensure that everyone is striving for the same level of excellence. Now, you hinted at some exciting new training techniques that might be incorporated into future versions of Tülu 3. Can you elaborate on those?
So Schneppet suggests that we'll see the integration of techniques like reinforcement learning from human feedback or RLHF and proximal policy optimization or PPO.
Those are some pretty complex concepts. Can you break them down for our listeners who might not be familiar with those acronyms?
Sure. Think of RLHF as having a team of teachers constantly providing feedback to Tülu 3, guiding it towards generating outputs that are not just technically correct, but also align with human values and preferences.
So it's like having a human in the loop to kind of steer the AI's learning in the right direction.
Exactly. And PPO is an algorithm that helps the model learn more efficiently and effectively. It's all about optimizing the model's behavior to produce the best possible outcomes, kind of like fine-tuning a complex machine to run smoothly.
So these techniques are all about making Tülu 3 even smarter and more capable. But how does the open source nature of Tülu 3 fit into the larger AI landscape? There are a lot of companies out there with their own proprietary closed models.
Right.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of each approach?
Right. That's a great question, and it really boils down to a philosophical debate about the best way to drive AI innovation.
Okay.
Closed labs often have vast resources and data, giving them a head start in terms of computational power.
Right.
However, their secretive nature can stifle collaboration and limit the spread of knowledge.
Whereas the open source approach, like with Tülu 3, encourages transparency and collaboration. Anyone can scrutinize the code, identify potential issues, and contribute to improvements.
Exactly. It's about democratizing access to powerful AI and fostering a community-driven approach to development.
It's like the difference between a walled garden and a vast open field.
Yeah.
Nature, diversity, and openness lead to a more vibrant and resilient ecosystem.
Right.
And you could argue that the same principle applies to the world of AI.
I completely agree, and Schneppet seems to be a strong advocate for the open source approach. He believes that it's crucial for building trust, ensuring ethical development, and ultimately benefiting society as a whole.
You mentioned earlier that catastrophic forgetting is a challenge in AI training. Yeah. Can you explain what that means and why it's a concern?
So catastrophic forgetting is a phenomenon that can happen when you're training AI models. Essentially, as the model learns new information, it can sometimes forget previously learned knowledge.
So it's like trying to teach an old dog new tricks, but in the process, they forget some of their old tricks.
That's a good analogy, and it's a significant hurdle because we want AI models to be adaptable and capable of continuously learning without losing previously acquired skills.
What are some of the ways that researchers are trying to combat this issue?
One promising approach is the use of synthetic data.
Okay.
By creating artificial data sets specifically designed to reinforce previous knowledge.
Interesting.
We can help the model retain its older skills while it's learning new ones.
That makes a lot of sense. And of course, no discussion about open source AI would be complete without talking about the role of community engagement.
Absolutely. And AI2 has been very intentional about fostering a strong community around Tülu 3. They're encouraging developers to experiment, share their findings, report issues, and contribute to the model's ongoing improvement.
So it really feels like a collective effort to push the boundaries of AI.
It is. And Schneppet believes that this community-driven approach is essential for the future of open source AI. He sees Tülu 3 as a catalyst for even greater engagement and collaboration in the years to come.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the intricate details of Tülu 3's development to the broader philosophical implications of open source AI. But before we wrap things up, I'd like to get your final thoughts on what this all means. What's the takeaway message for our listeners? So for our listeners who've been with us on this deep dive into Tülu 3, what are the key takeaways they should walk away with?
Well, I think the most important takeaway is that Tülu 3 really represents a significant step forward for open source AI.
In what way?
Well, it demonstrates that open models can rival and even surpass the performance of closed proprietary models.
Yeah, and it's not just about performance, right? Tülu 3 kind of embodies this whole philosophy of openness and transparency and collaboration that has the potential to reshape the entire AI landscape.
Exactly. You know, AI2's decision to open source the model, the training data, and the infrastructure, that's groundbreaking.
It really is.
It allows anyone, regardless of the resources or affiliations, to contribute to AI development.
Yeah, it's a true democratization of AI technology.
What is?
We also talked about some exciting future possibilities, like the development of massive preference data sets and the integration of advanced training techniques like RLHF and PPO.
Right.
These advancements could lead to even more powerful, more reliable, and more aligned AI systems in the future.
They could also open up new applications and opportunities that we haven't even imagined yet.
That's an exciting thought.
It is.
Of course, we also have to acknowledge the challenges. We talked about the complexities of post-training, the importance of data privacy, the need for even better documentation, and that ongoing battle against catastrophic forgetting.
Those are real challenges. Yeah.
That the open source community needs to address head on, but I'm confident that with continued collaboration and innovation, we can overcome these hurdles.
And ultimately, the success of open source AI depends on the active involvement of a vibrant community.
Absolutely.
It's going to take a collective effort from researchers, developers, policymakers, and even everyday users to ensure that open source AI is developed and used ethically and responsibly.
It's a huge responsibility.
Yeah, it really is.
For all of us.
So as we conclude our deep dive into Tülu 3.405b and the work of Jörg-Owe, I'd like to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay.
Imagine a world where access to these powerful AI tools isn't restricted to a select few, but it's available to everyone.
Right.
How might this widespread access change the way we approach research, solve problems, and even just live our daily lives? And what ethical considerations need to be top of mind as we navigate this exciting new era of open and accessible AI?
Yeah.
Those are questions that we all need to grapple with. We do.
As we move forward. The future of AI is in our hands, and it's up to us to shape it in a way that benefits all of humanity.
Couldn't have said it better myself. You know, Tülu 3 is a testament to the power of open collaboration, and it's really an invitation for all of us to participate in shaping the future of AI.
That's a great way to put it. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into this fascinating world of knowledge and discovery.